All right, so we're going to continue on in some other off-season related topics with a tier list. We've done a few of these on the podcast. We have a tier list here today talking about each team not in the playoffs and their future. How are these non-playoff teams' futures looking like? So we got all 16 teams here to my best recognition. I believe I got all 16 teams here. So we're going to get straight into it here. We have 5 columns. We have great future, good future, making progress, no man's land, and they're cooked. So they're cooked is bad future for the boomers out there. So we'll get straight into it here. Starting off with the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks finished second to last in the NHL this season. They have the second best odds at the first overall pick. Carter, where are you putting the Chicago Blackhawks in this column?
I feel like, honestly, Connor Bedard, I feel like no matter what, you got to put him. This is a positive no matter what. I think that you're going to have players who want to play with Bedard. So I think he's going to be able to attract a lot of talent, a lot of young talent, even a lot of old talent. I feel like guys are still going to want to play with a generational superstar as Connor Bedard. So, as well as that being said, they're guaranteed a top 4 pick, and any of those top 4 players will help them. So I'm going to put them at great future. I really like the future of the Chicago Blackhawks here. Um, so yeah, I'm going to put them in great future.
I'm with you on that. I'm going great future as well. I think with Bedard, with the chance of them getting Macklin Celebrini, as much as me and Carter have said vocally that we would hate that, Jack would love it, but we would hate that. You can't deny they have a great future ahead. The Buffalo Sabres are next up here. The Sabres finished a few points out of the playoffs this year. It's the 13th straight season out of it. They hire Lindy Ruff as their head coach. Carter, where are you putting them in this column? I don't think like you can put them in their cooked, but I don't know if like I'd say actually I don't know. Carter, what do you think?
So I think that I'm going to put them at good future. When you look at the Buffalo Sabres, they have everything right now. They got some good forwards. They have Zach Benson, who played really well his rookie year. As well as that, they got Matthew Savoy, who's in Wenatchee, I think he's in their minors right now. Jack Quinn as well. Tage Thompson highlights that. Dylan Cousins as well. Like they got that first line or that forward core good. Go to defense. They got Owen Power. They got oh my god, I'm blank. Darlene. They got Bowen Byram. Like they have a good defensive core too. And you're like, okay, well, they're lacking has to be goalie. That's where you're wrong. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and Devin Levi. This is a young team, and they have I want to put them in great future, but I think that we have to go good future because a lot of their guys are nearing either the beginning of their prime with some young guys, or they're nearing the end of it. So I would be comfortable putting them in good future, but I can definitely see them having a great future.
I'm on board with you as well. I'm glad that we're agreeing. I have them in good future. Listen, I think Buffalo, when we look a couple of years down the road, like we saw Carolina miss the playoffs for as long as they did. They've made it for the first time in a long time in 2019. I think we're a couple of years down the road from that. They made the playoffs every single year since then. I think we're in the same terms there with Buffalo as we were with Carolina. Like they missed the playoffs for so long. I think Buffalo is gonna be like in a playoff spot for a very long time. But
Mm-hmm.
and I think that if you put them in the Western Conference, or if you even put them like if you put them in the West, they're making the playoffs this year. It just sucks. You're shaking your head, but like I
It
think
was it was it was the opposite. The West was way tougher to get in.
oh really?
I swear, because
I mean, yeah, the East like it wasn't great towards the end when it came to the wild card race, but I think Buffalo would be would be way better in the Western Conference, in my opinion. I think they would be way better. All right,
no,
you're shaking your head, but
no.
I feel like this team, if they didn't play in a hard Atlantic and just that where like every team was essentially pretty solid this year, I think they would have a better chance of making it. But yeah, I have a good future there for Buffalo. I agree. St. Louis. I don't really know what to say about St. Louis. They finished just barely outside of the playoffs again. They obviously fired Craig Berube. Carter, you could be of the opinion that if you think that they bring in that they keep Bannister as the coach, and if they have a full season with him as coach, they can make the playoffs next year. But In terms of future, what do you think?
In terms of future, I'm tempted to throw them in no man's land. I don't think that they have very many prospects that are eye-catching to me. Um, or a lot of young players who are eye-catching to me either. I like Robert Thomas. I like Jordan Kyrou. I think they're both nearing their prime. Jordan Binnington's been all right this season. But when looking at the teams in good future and making progress, they don't seem to have a lot of prospects who I think could push them to making progress. Um, but I don't think that they're bad enough to say they're cooked. So I'm comfortable putting them in no man's land. That's where I'd want to put them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go no man's land too. I think that like they could make the playoffs next year, they could not. Like they're kind of, like that's pretty much no man's land. That's like the definition of no man's land. So I honestly have no clue. They don't have a bad future because I think they have guys like Kyrou and some other younger players in the pipeline that have looked good, but they don't have like an amazing future either. Like I don't know. Like I think that they have pieces, but I'm still putting them in no man's land right now. The New Jersey Devils, they finished just outside of a playoff spot this year as well. Carter, where are you putting them in this?
I'm putting them in great future. I will say they're a goaltender away. They're a goaltender away from being guaranteed playoff team. So I'm putting them in great future because again, they're a goaltender away. There's nothing else to say. Luke Hughes is going to get better next year. Jack Hughes is in his prime. Um, that's all I'm going to say. They're a goaltender away.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think this year was a very unlucky year. I feel like they had a lot of goalie issues. They faced a lot of injuries too, which I understand that you look at like the goaltending, that's obviously the biggest issue, but they faced a ton of injuries. Had they had Hamilton healthy, I think they make the playoffs. I honestly think that if they have Dougie Hamilton on that blue line and some other people that stayed healthy, like if Jack Hughes stayed healthy the whole year, I think they make the playoffs too. Just an unlucky year. It sucks because it's a year removed, and you could be looking down the road if the Devils don't win a cup with this core. You could be thinking to yourself, man, if only we made it that 23-24 year.
That was the year.
Yeah. So, yeah, I have them in great future. I agree. I think they are a goalie away. Anaheim Ducks, they were pretty bad this year. They missed the playoffs. In terms of future, Carter, where do you think they stand?
So here's my thing. I think their forward core is going to be the best in the National Hockey League in a couple years. In the next 2, 3 years. They're lacking on defense decently. They lost probably their best defenseman in Jamie Drysdale. Olin Zellweger looked good. Mintkov looked good. Dostal's been pretty solid, and I think that when they do end up trading John Gibson, they'll get a pretty decent haul in return for him. Um, but again, I just don't know because every year I'm like, hey, when are these guys going to take their next step? When is after his rookie year, I was like, when is Trevor Zegras going to take his next step? He hasn't shown that next step yet. As much as I fucking love the guy, um, he hasn't taken that next step to prove to me that he can be good. Putter's going to help them out a lot. McTavish is near his prime. Troy Terry is in his prime right now as we speak. Um, Leo Carlson looked good his rookie year as well. Um, so I think I would put them in good future just because I am not certain on their defensive core yet. I think if they get another defenseman, I think that this is a great future in Anaheim. But I think as of right now, without it, I think I'm gonna put them in good.
Yeah, I'm gonna put them in good too. I think that there are some things they still need to tweak. I think there's bad things you can look at. The forward core is amazing.
Hmm.
The forward core I think is absolutely unreal with Cutter Gochi added to that. I think it's absolutely insane. I think the defense will be good. I think the goaltending will be good. Just there's some concerns I have with Zegras and depth, and there's just a few things that I have concern with. But I think they have a good future right now. There is that question too of when do they take that next step. I really do hope that this coming season will be that next step. I
Hmm.
think it needs to be, right? I think it has
It
to.
it it does. It definitely has to be because I feel like every year we're looking at this and we're like, man, they look good. Like they got some young players. They got to step up. Oh, they didn't step up. Oh, they got some young players. They didn't step up last year. Nope, didn't step up again. So this year has to be the year, or you gotta start looking at. It can't be coaching because you've changed that last year. I don't know where this team is gonna have to look if next year doesn't look better. If they are not outside of the bottom 10. They have
Yeah.
to be outside of the bottom 10 or fighting for a playoff spot. Otherwise, they got to take a hard look in the mirror and look and be like, what the fuck are we doing?
They'd be like an Ottawa situation right now. That's kind of where I would think
Yes.
that they would be. So I'm
Yes.
actually gonna make a change here to the tier list. I'm changing making progress to middling future, a future that's like not good, not bad. I want to change that just because I think making progress is like for rebuilding teams, and I'm just gonna make a change midway through. Philadelphia Flyers. Flyers obviously had a really surprising season. I have no idea where to put them. Carter, Carter, what are you thinking here?
So, okay, so here's where I'm looking here. I really like the Flyers prospects. I think we have some excellent prospects. We got Oliver
Kachuk,
Bonk, who's been good.
Rizzo,
Rizzo, who's been good. We had another guy who we got from the London Knights. I think we took him in the
Barkley,
third round. I can't.
Barkley.
Denver Barkey. He's looked unreal. He took that next step this year. I really like our prospects. We had some guys who took that next step. Cam York being one of them. I think he was definitely our most improved player. Probably one of the most improved players this season. I really like our future. It is a very big question mark right now with the loss of Carter Hart. That definitely stings. We made some good trades. We got some picks as well. I don't think that it is enough to put us in great future. I didn't even mention Mitchkov. Mitchkov's going to be unreal. Um, but I don't know if it's enough to put us in great future. I don't want to be biased, so I feel like I'm going to be anti-Philly a little bit here. I'm fine with putting them in great future, but I think the safe bet is to say good future. So I think we have a top prospect pool in the league, but right now, like that last season, we either had to make playoffs or not make them at all. And we put ourselves in that no man's land position to where we can't get the first overall pick. As far as we can get is second. But we still do have a great future, so I don't think we're putting us in middling. So I would put us in good, but I can definitely see us going great.
So I'm gonna refer back to our friend of ours, Michael Bartner. We've talked about him ironically in this podcast a couple of times. He said the Flyers are in no man's land, and he said that the Flyers kind of f themselves in the butt by overachieving this year and barely making the playoffs. I on a level, I agree with that statement. I agree with the fact that we did overachieve, I feel like. And I agree with the fact that I do think that we did kind of F ourselves in the butt not making the playoffs this year. And as Carter said, this was a year where you kind of had to make it or not make it at all. Not barely missed by a couple of points. So that it kind of screwed ourselves over from like a top 10 pick this year. Had we, I would have rather us been bad this year, honestly, than it was. And listen, it was really fun. It was really fun this year to watch this team. This is the most I've enjoyed Flyers hockey in so long. Like before, like even like before this year, like last year, I wasn't really into it. I was like, they're there, it's fine. But this year was really, really fun watching the Flyers. So yeah, I think next year is going to be good. What Carter didn't mention is that Denver Barkley and Massimo Rizzo are going to be coming over to the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
So that them, Bobby Brink, Tyson Forster, Noah Kate, that could be a pretty damn good forward core if Barkley and Rizzo pan out. If Bonk comes over, which I think he plays a year in the AHL, I think you're looking at something good there too. What some people aren't even mentioning is Emil Andre. Emil Andre had a pretty good year in the AHL this year. There's a chance that next year he could come up and play well. Yerger Zamula looked good this year too. I think that again, I agree with Carter with the goaltending question. That's my biggest concern right now. But apart from that, I'm liking the future. I agree. I'm going with good future. I think
Did
putting us in no man's land, which is what Barner did, is not really that fair. I think that yes, we're not making the playoffs next year. I don't even think we make it the year after that. But I think this year showed that we might not need like 4 or 5 more years to make it back. We might only need like 2 or 3. So I'm perfectly fine with that. So good future. Next up, the Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild missed the playoffs by a few points this year. They obviously fired or they fired who the hell was their coach? They fired Dean Evison. They brought in John Hines, and obviously, they're in this situation now. So Carter, where are you putting the Minnesota Wild right now?
I feel like I don't actually know where I want to put them because obviously you got good prospects.
I think I know where I
Looking,
want to go.
hmm?
I think I know where. I think I haven't. I don't know. I'm between no man's land and middling future.
I feel like realistically, I want to put them in middling future.
Yeah.
Um, because I like Matthew Boldy. Matthew Boldy's going to be unreal. Um, Marco Rossi, right? That's one of the guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
Marco Rossi. He looked really good this year. Brock Faber looked good, but it's just the fact of their aging core. Um, a lot of their players are old. They're not gonna have a goalie next year, or not next year, the year after. Because they lose Marc Andre Fleury, right? Fleury's with Minnesota. Am I being
Yeah.
stupid?
This year's going to be Fleury's last year
Yeah.
as goalie.
So this is Fleury's last year. So you're losing your goalie, who even though Marc Andre Fleury is almost 40 years old, or he is 40 years old, I don't know, he's somewhere within there. Um, you're losing him, and he's an elite goaltender still. Um, so it kind of sucks. I feel like I want to put them in middling future just because of that aging core, but they still have some good prospects who can help fill those roles. But they don't have enough to warrant me putting them in good future. So I'll put them in middling.
Yeah, I'm going middling too. I think that as long as they're paying Parise and Sutter, they're going to be a middling. I do think though they have a really good prospect pool. They have a lot of good prospects. I think that Wallstead, someone who Carter didn't mention with the goalie situation, could be
Oh,
really good.
Wallstead.
So I think that definitely there's things there, but with Minnesota, just like honestly, I think as long as they're paying those players, they're not going to be able to put together a legitimate cup contending team. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope that this team does do well. I like Minnesota. I really enjoyed Minnesota, but I think middling future is where you have to go. Seattle. Seattle missed the playoffs this year. A lot of guys had down seasons. Beniers had a pretty bad sophomore year. Carter, where are you putting Seattle in these?
I genuinely have no idea. Like I think I feel like I want to just put them in no man's land because they took that step. So year one, I think we kind of figured it doesn't look like they're going for it year one. That's fine. We'll write them off. It's year one. They'll build up a future. They'll be okay. So we did, and that's what happened, right? Then next year they take that step. They're like, okay, well, we're like, okay, this could be a legitimate team here. Like we're looking at a team. Like this one, like they're a couple pieces away and they could make a good run. And then this year they're bad again. So I feel like they're stuck in no man's land or they're cooked. And I don't know which one it is.
See,
Because ultimately they have prospects, kind of. Beniers took that step down, which sucks for him. Shane Wright looked all right this year. But I feel like you want to see a little bit more, especially from a guy like Shane Wright. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'd put them in no man's land or they're cooked. I don't know a whole heck of a lot about the prospect pool. I don't know if Nord does. So I'd put them in their cooked or no man's land, and I'm comfortable with either.
see, I disagree with both of those. I think I'm putting them in middling future. I think if Matty Beniers bounces back, I think if Shane Wright plays a full year in the NHL next year, I think the team will be way better. They're drafting eighth overall this year, so they have a chance of getting another really solid prospect, adding that to the pipeline. I forget who they got last year. I can't think of who it was. It'll come to my mind eventually, but Seattle, I think they have a decent prospect pool. They don't have like a really good future or a great future. I don't think they're in no man's land. I definitely don't think they're cooked. But I think that they have a middling future. I think they're like Minnesota. So it's up to you, Carter. What do you think?
If you want to put, I'm fine with middling future. I'm
Okay.
fine with that.
Okay. All right, we got Calgary. So the Calgary Flames obviously made a lot of deadline moves. They kind of missed the playoffs. They didn't do all too great this year. Carter, what's the future looking like? What do you think about Calgary? Are they
So
cooked?
I don't think I'd put them in there cooked. I think that they made some of the right deadline moves, or pre-deadline moves as well. Made some good trades, as I mentioned before. Kuzmenko's looked nice. He's a good young piece. They got a lot of picks to work with here. So I don't think I'd put them in their cooked or no man's land. I think with all the picks that they got and some of the young pieces that they acquired as well, I'd put them in middling. Um, so I'm comfortable with putting them there. I really like the deadline moves they made this year. So I'll put them in middling. That seems fair for me.
I'm with you. I'm with middling future too. I think that, and this kind of sucks because we're doing this before the draft. I think if we did this post draft, our opinions on some of these may change. And it really depends on how some of these picks go for Calgary. If they come out if they get Vancouver's pick well, they have Vancouver's pick. If they use their pick, which is ninth overall, if they also use Vancouver's pick, draft some two really solid players, maybe their future's better. I think the young guys like Dustin Wolf, Coronado, Connor Zary, they're there for sure. But right now, I don't know if I can put them in good future, just because like I don't really know what next year's gonna look like. Like I don't really know. Like they're not in no man's land, but I think that just the future feels very middling. So next up, Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens obviously missed the playoffs this year as well. All these teams missed the playoffs. Stupid me. Um, Montreal, I felt like looked a lot better than they were supposed to, even though they finished last in the division. I think they looked very impressive overall. Carter, where are you putting them in this ranking? I think Slavkovsky had a good year. I think that Hudson's come over, has played
Mhm.
well. I think the future is pretty bright.
Yeah, I agree. So realistically, I think that Montreal and Anaheim are very comparable. I think you
Yes,
look
I
at
agree.
I think you look at Nick Suzuki and Troy Terry. I see those two as being very, very tight. I think you look at I mean, I wouldn't say Trevor Zegers and Cole Caulfield because I think Cole Caulfield is miles ahead of Trevor Zegers right now. But you look at some of the guys that they got, like Lane Hudson. I really like their future. It's all about them taking that next step. I really like Slavkovsky. I think he played really well this year. He's I will be honest, he has proved that we got to stop judging prospects too early. Because everyone was ripping him last year, like, oh, this guy's horrible. He's terrible. He doesn't. Same with Alexi Lafreniere. Everyone was trashing him. Lafreniere put up a 30 goal season. Slavkovsky this year played well. What did he put up? Like 50, 60 points or
He had a
something?
pretty good season. He had a
As
very good season.
as a 19-year-old in the NHL, I don't care what you say. You're 19, you're still a teenager playing against grown adults. I don't care. 60 points, no 60 points in the NHL just in general is good. And especially as a 19-year-old, that is good. I think was first overall the right call? Maybe not. Maybe it was. Who knows? We're not going to find
I'm
out for
taking
another 5
Cooley.
years when we all decide to do a fucking redraft, okay?
Yeah.
But I really do like the future in Montreal. I don't know if it's enough to go great future, so I'm very comfortable putting them in good future because I think if I'm comparing them with Anaheim, I think it's all about them just figuring out when that next step is. And I don't I, I don't know what they are away though. That's the thing. I feel like I want to say they might be a goalie away. Um because I
I
think their
think
forward
Montemall's
core is
been
good.
good. I think it's just a
Yeah.
matter of them taking the next step. Reminder, they had the fifth overall pick again this year. They're
Yeah.
picking fifth overall again. So
And
and,
could end up moving up as well.
and higher. So they have a very good chance at landing another really solid player here. And I think that in terms of just like the pool, I think the pool is awesome. Rhineback, the defense is going to be insane. Like when that is in its when every player gets like back to like where they're expected to be, that defense will be unbelievable. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm with good future. I think that you could even argue. I get that you're comparing them to Anaheim, but I think you could even argue if they get another solid player at this year's draft, they could have a great future. We'll see. Columbus. So Columbus finished really bad this year. We thought they would improve. It was another disaster season. The Mike Babcock situation. They fired Kekalainen through the year as well. They've handled Juracek and Pascal Vincent wasn't handled very well. So where are you putting them in this future? I think they have a good future, but it's just a matter of developing that. So what do you think, Carter?
I genuinely don't know. I like
Oh,
some of the prospects. I like some of the prospects that they have. Fantilli looked all right this year. I mean, it's an awful lot. He's 18, 19 years old. Um, so it's still an awful lot to ask out of him there. Um, so I don't know. It Renski's nearing the out of his prime. Yurchek's not happy with the team for not playing him. So I don't know what's going to happen with him. They don't have a young goaltender. Their forward core is meh. I'd put them in no man's land or middling. in my opinion, I'm really not a fan of Columbus right now. I still think they have a couple more years of rebuilding.
I think I'm with you. I'm going middling. I like some of the guys they have in the pipeline, but I'm not too keen on a
I'm
lot of
not sold on them.
and I think that Merzlikins is not it. I don't they need to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Tarasov could be the guy, but like what do you know at this point? Like I have no idea. They're you could argue no man's land, but I'm putting them in middling future.
Hmm.
The Ottawa Senators. The Senators it was a rough year. They were expected to get better this year. They definitely did not. They're definitely looking at things with the coach. They might be looking at actually big changes in regards to trading guys like Chikrin, maybe even trading guys like Batherson. There's a good chance of that. So Carter, I'm thinking no man's land, but where are you on this?
I completely agree. I'm throwing them in no man's land. They need a coach bad, um, which it's needed. They need a fucking coach. They're wasting Stutzel's prime. They're wasting Kachuk's prime. The fact that Claude Giroux is went to Ottawa because he thought Philadelphia was going to be bad. And now we almost made the playoffs, and we have a better future than Ottawa too. Hilarious. Um, but I will say they've needed a coach, and we've talked about this before. I think we called them out on this.
This has
You'll,
been a topic for years.
yeah,
And the funny thing is this dates back to the early episodes when we all had Ottawa going to the Cup final and Ottawa winning the Stanley Cup. That shows how much we've developed since then
yeah,
and how
yeah.
stupid we were
No,
back in the day.
they need help. They need a coach, and they need some young defensemen too. That is another thing that they need. They can't keep relying on Thomas Chabot, and especially if they do keep Jacob Chikrin. Um, but yeah,
I don't
they
know.
need a young defenseman.
It depends on how they move Checker and how they move some of the other players. I think if they get enough assets back, they could be in a good spot. But right now, it's no man's land. We got four more teams left. San Jose. San Jose was a team we talked about earlier. They were the worst team in the NHL this year. I think that like essentially, they brought in some good prospects. They traded away some players for some first round picks and good prospects. Carter, where do you stand on San Jose? They're kind of weird. They were the worst team in the NHL this year. I don't really know where you would put them. Do you put them in the same as Chicago, or what's going on here?
So I would not put them in the same as Chicago
I
because
think if they
I
get
don't think
Celebrini, maybe.
I think that I agree. I think they get Celebrini. I think I'm putting them in great future just off that forward core alone. Um, but they're lacking in defense. They're lacking in goaltending. Um, so realistically, I think Will Smith will definitely help this team. I think without Will Smith, they're in no man's land. So I think with Will Smith, I'd throw the middling future. But especially with this year having a top three pick, guaranteed lockdown, I think I'd put them in good future just based off that alone. I really like Will Smith. I think he's going to be a superstar in this league. 3 years into 3 years into it, honestly. Colin Graff is going to have a nice instant impact for the San Jose Sharks as well. And then if they end up getting Macklin Celebrini, that's just going to add to that forward firepower. But again, as I will say, they also have Pittsburgh's pick as well.
Yep.
Um, it is top 10 protected, I'm pretty sure, but still.
No, they have it.
Oh, it's 100%.
Yep, it's 100%. They're gonna have it.
All right, perfect. So if Pittsburgh moves up, that is just going to be absolutely unreal for them because they'll end up getting one of the top defensemen. Um, so realistically, this is looking good for them. They're instantly getting top first two players in the top half of the first round, which is really good to help build your future. So I'm comfortable putting them in good future. But I think with Celebrini, it's great future for sure.
I think I'm going with good future. I think I'm on the same page as you. I like what they're building. I really like it. It's gonna take a long time before they get there though. But I like the future after year one. Like I really like the future. So we got three more teams here. Pittsburgh. I think I think they're the only team that I'm gonna put in there cooked. Do you agree with me? I think they're the only team that I'm gonna put in that column.
Into here Here's the thing for future wise, probably but you still have Sidney Crosby for the
True.
next 2-3 years.
Maybe
And I feel like as far as
before.
future, when we're looking at this, we're looking at 3 years, if more. Um, like 3-4 years. So I think if you have Crosby for that, you can't really put them in there cooked because I think they'll still
Yeah.
compete every single fucking year with Crosby. Um, if we were doing this based on their prospect pool, 100% they're going in there cooked. This is future wise, and you're gonna keep Crosby. He'll be there for the next 4 years. I think we go no man's land with them.
You got a point. I'm with you.
So
Part of that part. Listen, part of that was just because I wanted to put a team in there cooked, but I don't think the other two we have are going to be in there cooked. But I mean, I agree with you. I think they are going to compete, but they're just in no man's land
yeah,
because
they don't have the prospects, and especially with trading that first round pick this year, not a good look.
kind of shoots them in the foot.
Oh,
So we got Salt
100%.
Lake City, Salt Lake City, not Arizona, Salt Lake City.
So like
So in terms of their future, obviously like Arizona missed the playoffs this year. But I think their future, I think I'm gonna take the lead with this. I think they have a really good future. I don't know if it's great, but I think they have a good future. Carter, where do you stand on that?
I agree. I think that I feel like the only team that I think I like better in the good future category, I would say, is Buffalo. Um, I think either one of those two is looking great because I really like the prospects that Arizona has. I think they did this rebuild tremendously. They still have a lot of picks in this year's draft and next year's. Um, so I'm a really big fan of this draft. Um, not of this draft, of their prospect
Team.
pool. That's what I'm getting at
Cool.
here. Um, they got some good NHLers. Clayton Keller's going to take that next step. Logan Cooley, this was year one of him in the NHL. He played really well. I think you give him a little bit more time to develop too. He's going to be good. They have some good defensemen as well. Vejmelka looks good as well. So I think they're one or two pieces away. They have Connor Geekie, who is playing with Tucson right now in the playoffs, as Swift Current just ended. So we'll see how he does there in the AHL, trying to actually playing against grown men and no longer against 20-year-olds. So we'll see how he does there. I think that he will end up doing really well because I've watched him a lot. He's nasty. Um, so I really like their future here. I think the only team with a better future in the good future category is Buffalo. But I really like that team.
Okay. And finally, we have the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings obviously barely missed out on the playoffs this year. I am a massive fan of Detroit's future. So I'm going to let Carter take the lead here first, and then I will go in depth with mine.
Whoa, okay, I get to take the lead. I think that this is an automatic good future. I really like how this team is. Um, we saw Lucas Raymond take that next step this year. You want to put them in great, don't you?
I do. I do want to
Yeah,
put them.
I would be fine with putting them in great future as well. Um, because they have a lot of good players in that pool. Goaltending, I think is probably their biggest, like, could use a little bit of work on.
I think if
Um,
Costa
I,
develops, they'll be good.
I agree. I think if Kosa plays as well in the NHL, I think that he'll be really good. Um, Sider is probably going to end up being one of the best defensemen in the NHL next year, um, or the following year. He's going to constantly be that big body, but can also put the puck in the back of the net and help put the puck in the back of the net. Lucas Raymond took that next step, and oh my gosh, this guy is going to be unreal for Detroit.
Mhm.
He took that first step year one, his rookie year, then kind of not fell off, but he started to drift off a little bit. But this year he bounced right back. He led this team in points. Not to mention they also got some good defensemen. Ben Sherratt's a good D man. David Perron helps that team out a lot as well. They also got Patty Kane, who did he sign? He signed just a 1 year deal,
He
correct?
did sign a 1 year deal. I think
So
I think they keep him though. I think
I
they
think I agree. I think that he will want to play with DeBrincat again. Yeah, Alex DeBrincat too. Like they got some good players in that area, as well as some good prospects too. So I really like the future there in Detroit. I'm comfortable putting them in great future. Um, yeah, but I don't think they have the best out of those great future teams. I think that
Oh, for sure.
I think that they have enough to be considered a great future. Um, But yeah, I'm comfortable putting them there.
Yeah, I like Detroit a lot. I think they have a really good forward core. They have good depth. I think the defense is going to be great too. If Costa can develop, I think they do have an overall really solid future. I think I think they're a playoff team next year. I genuinely think they're a playoff team next year. I think that the Devils make it back in, and I think that the Red Wings make it back in.
I
So
agree.
to recap here with our tier list, we have in the great future column, the best column. We got the Chicago Blackhawks, the New Jersey Devils, and the Red Wings. The good future column, we have the Sabres, Salt Lake City, the Anaheim Ducks, the Canadians, the Flyers, and the Sharks. Middling future, we have the Wild, the Kraken, the Flames, and the Blue Jackets. And then in no man's land, we have the St. Louis Blues, the Ottawa Senators, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Nobody got cooked today. Nobody was cooked. So you can thank
As
us.
much as much as Nordic wanted to, there's no one in there cooked.
Yeah, there's no one in there cooked. I just wish that Washington was here because I would put them in cooked. But regardless,
I agree. I would put if they were there, I would put them in cooked.
yeah. So maybe we'll do this again. We might do this again when the playoffs are over. Um. So yeah. Anyways, that will conclude episode number 53 of the NordCast. We appreciate you guys for listening here all the way to the end. Another long episode here. We enjoy these. We've made a lot. We've made. I think the last like 6 or 7 episodes have been an hour long. So that's pretty awesome.